Hollywood, for instance, tells us that here's one of the things that you really need to be concerned about when you are choosing a mate. Okay, you want to make sure good looks is right up there. You want to make sure that you have a very expensive wedding, and more than likely, then you're gonna have happily ever after. The movies, the magazines, all the emphasis is looks. It's you want to marry someone beautiful. You want to marry someone handsome. And in all honesty, I think that is in many people's minds like the top thing that they're looking for that's going to make a good marriage. They want to make sure that person is beautiful regardless of whether or not they're going to make a good mate or not. And then, of course, today more than ever, the cost of a wedding has been romanticized so greatly, and the cost of the dress. And I'm not necessarily against or saying I'm against expensive weddings or dresses if it's within reason of what the couple can do. But this is a concern of mine that I see is that so many couples, based on what they see in the magazines and on the shows, the reality shows, it's that you first are looking for good looks, and then secondly, you want to make sure that you spend a lot of money on that wedding and on the party and the different things. Just a real common sense passage that applies to this in a lot of things is Ephesians 5:15, and it simply says to us, whether we're talking about marriage or any other issue in life, it says, be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. And again, in all honesty, I just think that on one of the most important relationships of all, people enter into it very foolishly because they are over-consumed with good looks. They are there's an overemphasis on the event itself and the day itself. There are so many couples who, frankly, are not interested at all in receiving any form of counsel for a marriage, but they'll spend a lot of time on the whole preparation of the, getting that dress and the whole wedding itself. So be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. And so I'll just give you a couple of reasons why, if we're talking about marrying primarily because of good looks. I mean, people won't admit that. People won't admit that, but if that is one of their biggest reasons for why they get married, Scripture very clearly says that beauty fades. So, while I was quite amazingly handsome at 20, I'm a living example right in front of you. And this is what people don't seem to understand, that if that's one of the primary things that they're looking for when they choose a mate is how great looking that person is, and if at the same time they're saying, I want this marriage to last forever, well, beauty fades, and that great looking couple one day is going to be 50. And one day it's going to be 60, and one day it's going to be 70. And this is just the truth. But if so much of the emphasis, which I see it, is on marrying somebody for their looks, that is ridiculous. And then here's another thought in terms of why we should not listen to Hollywood's lies. It's the burden of debt, and you knew I was going there when I talk about the cost of weddings. Hollywood's not going to tell you about this. The shows on TV, the reality shows, they're not going to talk about the debt that couples go into right after that marriage starts. 76% of couples have significant wedding debt. And that first year or two of marriage is so tough. It is, it's a huge adjustment period. And then if you, on top of that, have such a stress as finances, which money stress is one of the larger reasons that people end up getting a divorce. So now if you add that into it, that right from the very beginning of your marriage relationship, now you've added one of the highest predictors of divorce into that scenario. It just simply does not make sense. A couple of quotes from divorce lawyers. Former divorce lawyer Michelle Crosby observes, "Those brides that blindly focus more on the ring, the dress, and the party instead of the importance of what it takes to have a healthy partnership are more likely to one day sell that ring to pay for their divorce." Another divorce lawyer, James Sexton, agrees. He says, "There's a joke among divorce lawyers that the expense of the divorce is generally proportionate to the expense of the wedding." Hollywood's not going to tell you that. Hollywood doesn't care. Hollywood wants to sell movies, so they have the best-looking people on that movie, and they also play up to the whole romance idea with the beautiful weddings and the beautiful dress and all of that stuff, and they play into that without saying, but do you understand that these beautiful people are going to be 50 one day, and 60 and 70 and 80? Do you understand that? So if they're putting so much emphasis now on choosing a mate based on looks, and do you understand that in a month or so they're going to get the bill, the opening round of bills to pay for all of this? All right, so if Hollywood lies, which they do, and if those things aren't true determining factors of what it takes to have a good relationship, then I'm going to tell you some that are, okay? I'm going to tell you what are determining factors of a good relationship. For many years, marriage counselors did not think about the scientific angle of relationships, how the mind works, how the emotions work in there. And it wasn't until the mid to late 70s where scientists who were also marriage counselors or had marriage in mind, they started to say that the divorce rate in this country is getting so out of hand. This is in the early 70s to mid 70s, that we need to really start to determine what is going on in these couples. And so, again, using a scientific approach, one of them in particular who is kind of like the go-to these days and has been for many years is Dr. John Gottman. He has done research for over 40 years now on what it takes to have a good marriage, and he was one of these early scientists that started to gather couples together, and they would interview these couples about different topics concerning their relationship. And they actually put little sensors on their fingers that would monitor their blood pressure and the sweat glands and the heart rate, because it's possible to be really calm when you're really upset inside. And so they would ask the people the questions, but what was really the truth was what was being determined by how they were hooked up to the things that were reading this. And then every 6 years they would get back together with these same couples, and they would see if they were still married, or they would see whether they're having problems, and they kept doing this. For some couples literally like over 20 or more years. They keep tracking these people. And they've actually determined, I won't go into this now, but they've actually determined the four most common predictors of divorce. One of the things that they did was they also would take couples and they would have them go on a couples retreat, and they had bed and breakfast environments where the couples would go and just be themselves, just cook and clean, do whatever, entertainment, whatever you do at a bed and breakfast. But the agreement was that these scientists, in some way that they could get an honest feedback, they were actually observing these couples, again, in a way that it wasn't put on, it was just very real. And one of the things that they determined is called turning. They figured out that all of those times that a couple, just when they're having normal conversation, when, let me give you a couple scenarios. Let's say that you have a husband and wife in the same room together watching TV. Husband's maybe reading something on his phone, and it's figure skating, and the husband has no interest in figure skating, right, Alex? But his wife does. So she turns to him and says, "Did you see that? Look, the replay's coming on. Watch this." And so the husband then at this point has a decision to make, whether or not for a few seconds, whether he's going to be really wholeheartedly interested and invested in that, or whether he'll just say, "Look, I'm reading. Wait till I finish this article." Or he might watch it and just kind of say comments like, "Well, I've seen that before," or "Anyone could do that." Now, they call this turning. They say that when the female is doing that, she is doing an emotional bid. And she is emotionally saying, "This is what I like. Will you find it interesting with me for a few moments? And can we just spend these few moments together so I can show you this?" That's an emotional bid. Or it can go the other way around. You got a couple in the same room together, and the guy is playing a video game, and so he gets excited because he passed this certain level, and he says to the wife, he says, "Man, can you believe I beat so and so? And check it out, man. Look where I'm at on the scoreboard here, in the rankings." She has a moment where she can decide, is she going to accept that emotional bid where he is saying, "Hey, just come and join me in something I find interesting," or is she going to just say, "You know what, that is a video game, and you are how old?" And, on and on and on she could go, and she could roll her eyes. Okay, so this is emotional bids, and through a series, literally, of years of observing couples, they have determined that 33, like 3 out of 10 couples, the ones who end up getting a divorce, are bad at this, and so only 3 out of 10 do they actually look or act like they care about the figure skater. But almost 9 out of 10 care about looking at the standings on the video game. I mean, they may not really care about it, but they are as caring as they can, and they're trying to connect with their mate at that moment. Like, "Man, that's awesome. You worked hard for that." Okay? So those are called emotional bids. And so what does make a marriage work is not good looks, and it's not because you spent a lot of money on the wedding, but it's something called turning. And it's it happens every single day that you guys are together. You have a chance to either turn toward or turn away from your mate in those moments. You either turn toward or you roll your eyes and you turn away. And that is a determining factor that makes a big difference. Another one they say that will make for a healthy marriage is if you can have at least one shared experience that you enjoy together. If you know Denise and I much by now, you know that baseball is ours. And I'm so thankful for baseball, one, because I love the game, but two, because it helps my relationship with my wife. Because she genuinely enjoys baseball as well. And since we have that shared experience together, we literally talk about trades, and we talk about, how many pitches a guy has thrown in a game, and whether or not the bullpen's ready to replace that guy, and just did the coach make a good decision? Should they have went home, or should the third base coach have held him up? We talk about these things, and it truly is a way that we can connect on a different level. It doesn't have to be for long, but it is very certain that you need to have at least one area that you can connect with in terms of your spouse. That's not like the kids, or not like just something immediately involved with your relationship. Something other than that, like sports, or like a hobby, or like music, or traveling, or cooking, or movies. And it could be any number of things. It could be just the smallest little thing that you might not even think of that you're doing now. But think about it. You could play cards with a group of people. Look at that as a way of, this is your opportunity to connect with your mate. Look at it that way, and you can make it even better. So a shared experience. Now, good looks isn't going to make a good marriage. I've got a good marriage, so there you go. Good looks isn't going to make a good marriage, and nor is spending a lot of money and going into debt. But turning toward your mate almost all the time, 9 out of 10 times, whenever they say, hey, this is cool, then you join in that. Shared experience, I'm going to give you one more, and this is positive interactions. I've talked to you about this, probably talked to you about a year ago, and that is love languages. This is where I always start when I talk to couples, and that is knowing your love language. And I won't go into describing it right now. If you would like to know more about this, though, if you would talk to me, or you can send me an email, and I will send you a link that allows you to take a quick little survey test, about 10 minutes long, 5-10 minutes. And it'll also give you a video in which the love languages are explained. And you can email me at tom@24today.org. So that's Tom at the number 24 and the word today.org. Tom@24today.org, and I will get you more information on love languages. But to know love languages is so important. Denise's love language is acts of service. So that means for me that I make sure as very best as I can to load the dishwasher by the time she gets home from work. And, I straighten up, or I vacuum, or that sort of thing, because that is an act of service. And that to her says, you love me, and I really appreciate that. Gifts is another one. Some people, their love language is gifts. Physical touch is others. Words of affirmation, which is mine. Quality time. So what you need to know is your love language and the love language of your mate, and then every single day, at least once, every day, speak their love language. Love them in the way that they like to be loved, because it's likely not to be your way. Words of affirmation aren't necessarily Denise's, they're mine. So, I could do all kinds of words of affirmation, and she will like it, but it doesn't say, I love you. Now, where I'm going with this is that, again, marriage scientists, in all their surveys that they have done, have determined that a good and healthy marriages takes 5 positive interactions to every one negative interaction. So you see how see how big of a difference it is? It's not like 2 to 1, it's 5. So for every one negative interaction that you have in your relationship, a healthy relationship has 5 positive interaction. And these love languages are positive interactions. It could be making coffee for your mate in the morning, or I don't know, any number of little things that you are doing. 5 of those for every one negative. And this is a determining factor on what makes a relationship great. The Bible says, be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. If Hollywood was around then, they would say, don't listen to Hollywood. They don't care. Instead, look at the truth of what makes a good relationship, and that is turning. And you're going to have a chance today where your mate there's something that they're interested in, and very likely you don't care about it. They might be a bird watcher, and they say, man, look at that spotted cuckoo or whatever, and you don't care about birds. So it'd be easy for you to say, yeah, pretty much like every other spotted cuckoo I've seen. Or you could say, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool you actually observed that. You saw that. I don't even see those kinds of things. What's your favorite part of, that? What do you like most about the color of that bird? I don't know. And it doesn't take long. Positive turning instead of turning away. Shared experiences. What do you guys do? Think of one hobby, something you can share together, going to movies, watching a certain show you like. What is one thing you can do week after week? And then think of, for every negative interaction you've had, you need 5 of those positive, which means you got to be doing something positive every day. Because the lie is silly things like good looks and spending a lot of money. It's going to be happily ever after.